Hello, and welcome to our webcast for October 13, 2017. And this is a Friday 13.
Whoa. In October, no less. Halloween is 2 weeks away.
Oh, wow.
My name is Christian Debré, and this is Amy Asbrook, and at sorry, I know the name, but the position is the assistant, or kind of assistant. Anyway, everybody is assistant. I'm an assistant too. Okay. So, Amy Asbrook is the director of Toujours des Vivants Not Dead Yet, this organization. Also joining us, Taylor. Sorry to overtake. Toujours des Vivants Not Dead Yet is a non-religious organization by and for people with disabilities and our allies. Our goal is to inform, unify, and give voice to the disability rights opposition to assisted suicide, euthanasia, and other ending of life practices that discriminate against people with disabilities. Today's topics, as we do normally, two subjects. The first one, review of Canadian disability rights legislation. This part is the continuous part. It is the British Columbia part. The second subject is top court in UK and US refuse assisted suicide appeal. It is good for us.
Yeah.
So Amy Adler will talk about it.
Yep.
With us.
I sure will. Review of Canadian disability rights legislation, British Columbia. So all the way out to the left coast. Today, we're continuing our series on provincial disability rights legislation across Canada. British Columbia does not have a law guaranteeing disability rights. Instead, the provincial government has a plan to make the province fully accessible by 2024.
It's a flaw.
Yeah, they say it's going to be the most accessible province, but the fact that they're using a plan instead of an actual law kind of gives the lie to their promise.
Yeah.
Because if they don't succeed what they should give, nothing happens.
Right, exactly. The Accessibility 2024 strategy grew out of a public consultation held in 2013 and 2014. As with the federal legislation, suggestions were submitted online via email, in videos, and on social media through organizations and in person at 23 community meetings. This led to a one-day BC Accessibility Summit in June of 2014.
It's looking nice.
Right. It sounds like it would be great.
Sounds good.
A meeting of leaders from the government, businesses, and communities and disability advocates. So that was the summit. Accessibility 2024 is based on 12 building blocks identified through the consultations. And they are an inclusive government, accessibility of government services, accessible internet, an accessible built environment, housing, transit, provincial income support, employment, financial security, inclusive communities, preparation for emergencies, especially earthquakes, and the experience of visitors and consumers.
This is a very large spectrum of subject, but it seems that it misses some.
It's missing a couple. It's missing education, it's missing healthcare.
Oh, damn, just the two most important.
Right, it's missing home-based supports, you know.
Yeah, it's like missing the most important.
Right, but they're going to be the most progressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. At first glance, this seems like a fantastic and broad initiative. The most obvious problem, though, is the program's promises are not backed up by law. It scatters some treats rather than guaranteeing rights and imposing obligations that can be legally and consistently enforced.
Sounds very paternalist.
Yeah. But they're being nice about it.
Yeah, they are very nice.
Yeah. There is no remedy if the government doesn't meet program goals. There is no way for someone to fight for recognition of their rights in the future, since the province has already done so much for its disabled residents. Yeah. So that's the difference between rights and entitlements. One of the clearest examples of a treat is a housing project that involved giving low-rise apartment developers additional funds for each new unit with accessible features like lever-style faucets, wider halls and doorways, and lower counters. Developers may apply for the subsidy rather than being mandated to build a certain number of accessible units.
The most important words are may apply.
Yeah.
Because when you have been an entrepreneur, okay, you know that any business with the government, subsidies that kind, cost a lot of time, it's very bothering. So when you could just skip it, it's the best.
Right.
And what is happening. So
Right.
the apartment doesn't be built.
Right, right. And that's the difference between a law and a program. A law is saying that when you build an apartment, if you're going to build an apartment, it has to be accessible, or a certain percentage have to be accessible. Whereas this thing is, well, if the developer wants to,
He
may apply for a subsidy.
Yeah.
So, okay. Other components of the program simply don't make sense. Among its accomplishments so far, the built environment section of the strategy, yeah, Christian has to answer the door. The built environment section of the strategy lists giving government financial support to a company based in BC that provides prosthetic limbs to people in Haiti, which is interesting.
Of course, people need them. But shouldn't the government's primary goal be to serve the province's residents first?
Right. Right. Yeah, you would think, and it also, I mean, it's not even like making accessible the built environment in Haiti. It's providing prostheses, which is a little off the point. So, yeah, it's kind of odd. The transit section overlooked the lack of automatic bus announcements or automatic stop announcements on buses in many communities, yet it created accessible motorcycle permits.
Oh yeah, one or two people in the whole UK
Sure,
will
that's
drive
something
a
I need every
motorcycle,
day.
and over thousands of people using bus will not get.
Right.
Okay, that's kind of
Screwed up priorities.
not really a good balance.
Right. One way of supporting inclusive communities was a large donation to several Parasport organizations. Instead of continuing segregation, real integration would have meant enabling disabled people to obtain access to an existing activity that they choose. So instead of making special this and special that for disabled people, they could have integrated a sailing program so that people with and without disabilities could participate together. That would be good.
Other kind of activity. Yeah. And it could be non-disabled people who could do sport that disabled people could
Right.
practice, like hockey on ice,
Right.
with a sleigh, or basketball, or with a wheelchair, or thing like that.
Right.
It doesn't have to be disabled to practice.
Right, but the thing about sailing is that it can
Everybody
be
could do
completely
it.
integrated, and
Yeah.
it's the same thing for everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's many ways to integrate people, not segregate disabled people.
Right. Accessibility 2024 was designed with good intentions, but it won't actually change much. Even though disabled people across British Columbia were consulted before the plan was written, it appears to be yet another case of government doing what is easy rather than what is necessary.
I don't know if we have this proverb in English, but in French there is something that I try to translate, that hell is built over good intentions.
Yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, okay, so it's very close.
Yeah. So, any more comments on that one, Taylor?
I wanted to bring up the financial security section.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing they did was promote a government savings program that already exists. It's useful, but it smacks of promotion, and it really shows the limitations of one level of government when they don't collaborate with municipalities, with Ottawa, and they're not listening to residents who live in poverty and need more forms of relief besides that one.
Right, right. And I think they have suggested a basic income subsidy, but it's not, you know, I don't know if that plan is going to get off the ground. It's not necessarily going to support people. So we'll see.
We'll see.
I think they're more using it as an excuse to combine social assistance payments under one umbrella rather than actually raising those payments to support an actual standard of living.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next topic is top courts in UK and the US refuse assisted suicide.
Oh, and we.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. We skipped. Not everybody in BC is happy with what the province has done.
Oh, right. Yes.
There's a group called Barrier Free BC. They're the provincial arm of an organization that calls for disability acts across the country. And they're continuing to push for really high standards in accessibility laws. So they emphasize things like strong enforcement, application to all kinds of disabilities, removal and avoidance of barriers, and regular reviews every 4 years.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's very important because the federal law isn't going to cover a lot of territory. And it's urgent that provinces pass disability rights legislation, not disability treats legislation. And without comprehensive legislation that covers both the federal and the provincial level, there are going to be big gaps. And that's not going to be, that's going to make the tissue not hold solid for people.
Right.
Right. Okay. Top courts in the UK and the US refuse assisted suicide appeals.
That's good for us.
Yes. Last week, the UK High Court ruled that protections against assisted suicide should not be removed. Noel Conway has amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, and fears that the progression of his condition would leave him entombed, quote unquote, in his own body. He wanted the option to have a doctor end his life once he was given a prognosis of 6 months or less to live.
Oh, we know that doctors are very bad to do a good prognostic of 6 months.
Right.
We know
They're
many
often
people,
wrong.
Yeah, we know many people who have received that prognostic and they're still alive 20 years after.
Right. And I think the statistic in the United States is that Medicare, which covers 6 months of hospice care, that 17% of people outlive the Medicare hospice payment. So,
whoa, that's nearly 1 in 5.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's not very good.
Yeah.
When your life is on the verge, it's not very good.
Right. And, you know, the other thing is Noel Conway talks about he wants his power to end his life, but in fact, he's giving, it's not his
To a third person.
Yeah, he's giving it to a third person to do the act. Whereas, in fact, if he wanted to really die, he could do that on his own. But he's giving over responsibility to
Basically, people who want to suicide, nobody really likes suicide, okay, anytime. But if somebody really wants to die and do a suicide, there is very little thing that we could do against. But that kind of asking for suicide me or suicide them is just a call for help.
Yeah, and well, it's asking for society's approval for what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, we can't approve of that.
No, because there is a lot of organization and we are against suicide.
Right, exactly. Mr. Conway argued that Britain's prohibition on assisted suicide violates his right to respect for his private life without interference by a public authority, which is a little bizarre because the National Health Services has to administer the euthanasia, blah, blah, blah. Under the European Convention of Human Rights, that's the law he's arguing under, he had proposed a series of safeguards to evaluate requests for assisted suicide, including a written application, the approval of 2 physicians and 1 high court justice, and the creation of an oversight body. So he's proposing some safeguards, but, you know, as we've seen, safeguards, you can get around them, they don't work.
Or just not being looked care about.
Yeah.
We discussed it many years ago,
Yeah.
and this is not working.
Right, and there were studies done by the National Council on Disability in the United States and the Council of Canadians with Disabilities in 2003, both of which said it's to create a program that actually protects people, that has safeguards that would be successful in protecting people. They would be so cumbersome, it wouldn't work. The program wouldn't work. So that's essentially what they said. Not Dead Yet UK intervened in the case. They expressed concerns that people with disabilities could view themselves as a burden and face pressure to die. The British Medical Association, the British Geriatric Society, and the Royal College of General Practitioners also made insightful comments. They noted that the assisted suicide is against the fundamental healing role of a doctor and is a greater threat to women and people experiencing social isolation. The desire to die may be rooted in other conditions that can be relieved, like depression, pain, and a lack of independence.
Hey, British doctor have a head.
Yeah.
That ours doesn't have. I don't
Right.
know exactly why.
Yeah. More importantly, the British Medical Association highlighted the difference between acknowledging the inevitability of death and taking proactive steps to end life. Not the same thing. So it wasn't just NDY UK that opposed.
So, and about the law, Canadian law is the common law of Canada is based on the common law of UK. I don't know why the Supreme Court of Canada ruled.
Because they thought they were being progressive.
Yeah, but that's not the progress.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah. The court concluded that Mr. Conway's right to privacy could be limited in order to protect morals and the rights and freedoms of others. And that was a good conclusion. In response to the High Court decision, Not Dead Yet UK issued a statement which reads in part, "We welcome the decision by the High Court to reject this attempt to treat terminally ill and disabled people differently by removing vital legal protections. We are looking forward to the national conversation now focusing on the real issues here, which is a lack of adequate social care being provided to people with disabilities. Similarly, we need a proper discussion on ensuring adequate palliative care is provided for the terminally ill." And it's interesting because right now, England, the United Kingdom, is being criticized for failing to comply with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities.
Yeah, they cut so much program.
Right.
There was too much far right as politics.
Right, they've been cutting independent living programs and basic benefits and, you know, everything else for so long that
They even send back people to work and they die after 2 or 3 weeks.
Right, right. So it's been a pretty bad situation over there. The U.S. Supreme Court has also decided that it would not hear the appeal of the case of the Final Exit Network, FEN, in a Minnesota case. The network was convicted 2 years ago of encouraging a woman's suicide. FEN's lawyers argued that the state law against counseling another person on how to take their own life violates freedom of speech. However, the state Supreme Court said
that the ban was constitutional.
Yeah.
And that giving instructions on how to take someone's life was a form of speech that assists in suicide. The Supreme Court's refusal to take the case means the state court decision stands.
Great.
So, yeah, that was good news.
But even Minnesota is not even part of the Bible Belt, so we could not say this is a decision pushed by religion.
Right. And then, yeah. So the decision of the Minnesota Supreme Court stands. Okay. Anything else you want to add, Taylor?
I just want to go back to Mr. Conway for a minute.
Yep.
And point out the shift in the way morals have been used. The court said that Mr. Conway's rights were limited in order to protect morals. And the protection of morals has been used to back up disability discrimination in the past, and now they're being used to prevent it. Compare things like it's immoral to condemn someone to live a certain way, as he might say, or disability exists as punishment for immoral behavior in some ethical systems.
Right. There are some belief systems that say that. Yep. So I agree. Okay, if you want more information on the topics we discuss here, you can go to our Facebook page, which is at facebook.com/toujours vivant not dead yet. Visit our website at tvndy.ca. You can email us at info@tv-ndy.ca, or you can follow us on Twitter @TVNDY. Thanks to Christian for helping out, and Taylor as well for preparing our text. Thanks to you for being there, and we'll see you next time.
Yes.
Bye.
I would like
See you next week.
bye.
Even at 6, 7, 14.